This is Mouthbuzz. Every week, we follow life's strange little breadcrumbs, topics we bumped into, thought about, and maybe completely misunderstood. Join us as we talk it through. We're broadcasting today, perched right on the edge of Moreton Bay here in Sandgate. And we're going to take you for a walk along one of the most picturesque walks you're likely to experience, at least in Queensland, probably the world. What do you reckon?
The world. It is pretty.
But first, what's the buzz?
The buzz today is Capybara breakout zoo mischief in the moonlight.
Ha ha! Capybaras again!
Yes. Saving to spend. Why that might be making you broke.
Twisted logic.
Went for a cold, stayed for a 5-hour hospital wait.
I'm really looking forward to hearing what that's about.
Mm-hmm. More money, same habits. Why the raise didn't help.
Another money topic, we can do this.
Cutting back or growing bigger, which builds wealth.
Sounds like another money topic.
I know, all about money this week. 100 teachers, one bad apple, and another meeting.
I knew the teachers would get in there somewhere.
Yes. Built for the past, blinded to the present.
Oh, I wonder what that's about.
Yeah, me too. Your topic. I hope you know what it's about.
I guess we'll figure it out as we go.
We shall.
We're broadcasting from Sandgate or Shorncliffe. Actually, it's a combination of the two. On the foreshore of Sandgate, there is a wonderful walk, and we've spent many hours there. In fact, quite a few mornings having a cup of coffee looking out over Moreton Bay. It's very popular with joggers and walkers and dog walkers and all sorts of things. And there's a section called Lovers Walk. Did you know it's called Lovers Walk?
No.
Yeah.
We should go there again.
We should go there again. And so you walk along the edge of Moreton Bay from Sandgate to the Shorncliffe Pier. So that's where we're taking you for today. So we hope you enjoy it as much as we do. And in the meantime, we'll get on with the show.
Capybara, capybara, capybara. Do you want to sing? Capybara song, capybara.
No, I don't really think it's a good idea that I sing.
I've been finding out more about capybaras. Absolutely fascinating. Fact 1, did you know that a capybara can weigh up to 70 kilo?
Crikeys.
And do you think that's the male or the female?
I have no idea.
The females are the bigger ones. Woohoo! Be like a capybara. Put on more weight. That's not the story I want to tell. The story is capybaras are really, really sneaky. And
I heard they're pretty smart as well.
They are smart, they are clever, they're sneaky, and they're fast learners. So, at Taronga Park Zoo, the capybara enclosure is next to the children's playground. And the Taronga Park Zoo staff...
That's Taronga Park in Sydney, isn't it?
Yes. In Sydney. They were coming to work in the mornings and they were looking at the playground, the kids' playground, and they thought, wow, this looks disturbed, like somebody's been here. And they were thinking, which children would break into a zoo in the middle of the night and play in the playground?
It's probably unlikely.
Highly unlikely. It was the capybaras. They learned how to get out of their enclosure in the middle of the night, go and play in the playground, use the slides.
Play on the swings and the slides and things. The slides was the big thing.
Yeah, they'd go down, that was the big thing. And then make their way back to the enclosure.
Incredible.
And the reason why the staff found out was because one did a little pooper and left the poo behind. And I think then they also got some cameras and caught in the act. Capybaras on the slide in the middle of the night. Can you believe it?
Let down by a pooper.
Let down by a pooper. So amazing, huh?
So this could be a good lesson for bank robbers. Don't stop and have a pooper along the way.
Yeah, no, don't. Yes, that's right.
That's fabulous. That is clever.
Yes.
That they managed to work out how to get out of their enclosure.
Yes.
And
they have a moat and an incline, but they're very good swimmers. They're great climbers. They can do lots of things.
And they must have watched something to learn how the kids used the
Well, I reckon during the day they watch the children play.
and they thought, that's a cool idea. Let's go and do
Let's go.
that.
Absolutely.
Go capybaras.
Saving money. What's all that about?
The question is, if you're saving money, are you sending yourself broke?
What do you mean? Because if I'm saving, I'm saving.
Well, the thing with saving is, mostly, you're saving to spend.
I'm saving for something.
Saving for something.
I'm saving for my next holiday. I'm saving up for a car. I'm saving up for a house.
I'm saving up to get into debt.
I'm saving up to spend it.
I'm saving to spend.
Duh.
And that's not about having money, and that's not necessarily about building wealth. So, for example, if you're saving up to get a 5% deposit for $1 million house, then you're putting yourself, and you get that, right? And do that, you're putting yourself into debt for 30 years.
I just got something.
What?
I'm saving up for deposit for a house. So I'm saving up so I can get into $750,000 debt.
Yes.
That's what I'm saving for.
And look, I mean, there is some information around that suggests that buying a house on a 30-year mortgage is not a great financial investment. But that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
We all have to live somewhere, and so you end up paying in some fashion. But you've got to look at what you're saving for. If you were saving to be rich, if you were saving to create your rich life, if you were saving to have money, then those targets are different to if you're saving to buy a car.
Saving for something.
Saving for something. So
Right.
saving to spend.
So you just change a narrative.
Yeah, and you have to look at, what am I saving for here? What's the...
And could you do both?
Of course you can. There's nothing wrong with saving. It really just depends on what your targets are and how you organise that and what your thinking is on that.
So one of them could be saving to have money
Yes.
rather than saving for something to spend.
Yes, it's different. Saving to spend, saving to have money are two different things. Two different objectives, two different targets. And you should have both. You need to
Yes.
buy some things that are bigger than your current income will allow, and so you save for that, and that's great. But you can also save to have money. And we talked about having money in a previous show,
Yes.
and having money is different to spending money.
I remember years ago, I was quite young, I'd only just started my profession, and it was a relationship split up, and I wanted a bed, but I also wanted to go and travel. So I bought the bed on my credit card, and I didn't have enough to pay it off immediately when the payment was due. It felt as though I paid off my bed for about 3 years.
Right, yes.
And I thought, I'm never doing that again. I will not purchase an item like that unless I have the money outright. So that's a lesson I learned.
Well, that's cool. And I think we'll do a topic in the future on debt. Because some people do debt really well. And they use it as a tool to make money and have money and build
That's
wealth.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
The majority of people get into debt because they can't afford to buy what their dreams, their desires, their wants and their needs are. And so they use debt as a way of financing those things. Another topic, something
Another
else to
topic.
delve into.
While I sat there, the woman next to me who was waiting started chatting with me.
As you do.
And she was a nurse.
Ah,
So I told her about my story.
inside information.
Yes. And she looked at me and she said, how come the doctor didn't give you a referral for an imaging centre? And I said, good question.
Yeah.
And she said, how come she didn't prescribe you any antibiotics or write you a referral for a chest scan? And I said, great question.
Yes.
So she kept asking me questions like that. And I said, really good question. I said, I don't even know why I'm here.
Exactly.
And she said to me, I think your muscles are probably just sore from having cough for weeks. And I said, that's what I think. But I wasn't sure because of the sharp pain.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that that was okay because that pain was intense. And she said, I'm pretty sure it's just the muscles. And I said, as I've been sitting here for 5 hours, so do I. I said, I think I'm just going to go home now. And she said her daughter also works in a hospital. What's happening lately is more and more doctors are not dealing with things and referring more and more patients straight to the hospital.
So the hospital's getting overloaded.
Inundated with things that doctors could actually attend to. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. And I wonder why doctors... I mean, I'm sure they didn't all have a meeting and say, look, we'll just send everybody to the hospital. This is happening in individual practices.
And if I go in for cold and flu symptoms, why, I had to have a ECG, my heart, checked. And she said, oh, there's a little bit of a fault here. And I presented the result to the hospital, and they just laughed and gave it to another GP at the hospital and said, there's nothing wrong here. So it seems like they're overreacting. Are we all scared these days that people will sue for everything? Is that where this is all coming from? That was my thought.
Look, it could be a lot of things. It could be doctors just being very careful.
Super careful.
As you say, looking at everything. It could be talking up business. It could be overdiagnosis.
Yes.
There's a lot of factors here, and it could be just the doctor that you went to.
Perhaps. Maybe I should find another doctor.
So we'd like to give a big shout out to our friends at Sandy Creek Farm. Now every Sunday we go off to the farmers markets.
Yes.
And we see our friends Kelly and Rick. And these guys are awesome. They have several markets across the Brisbane area. And what they do is they support farmers. So when you go to them, not only do they sell their own products that they grow on their own farm, but they go and gather other things from other farmers to bring to sell at the markets. And occasionally, when they can't get something because it's out of season and people require it, they might go to the wholesaler and buy some stuff in. But their food is great, their fruit and vegetables are great, and we go there every Sunday for our fruit and veg.
And a lot of it is spray-free.
Spray-free.
And some of it is organic.
Absolutely. And what I love about it is you get to talk to the farmer and his wife. And you can say, what's in season? How did you grow this?
And we get awesome stories about awesome farmers around the place. For example, I remember Rick telling us that he travels to Stanthorpe to pick up apples.
Yes.
And there's an apple farmer. He's an elderly man now.
He's probably in his 80s,
yes,
this guy now.
And he doesn't water his apple trees. The apples grow, rely on whatever the earth provides.
Wow.
And nobody else has that knowledge.
Yes.
And he can't pass it on because nobody's interested.
Yes.
He does have family and the kids aren't interested.
They're not interested. So when he dies, his knowledge and his trees will probably go away.
Yes.
Which is a great pity because his apples are fabulous.
Oh, they're amazing.
They're not these big plumped up enormous apples that don't taste very much. They're compact, they're tight.
They're crispy.
Crispy and yummy.
Immensely tasty.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of people like that you hear about and you get to experience and enjoy their produce.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Rick, Kelly, and the boys that man the markets. I don't know all their names, but it's a lovely experience to go and be amongst the people that are creating this. To actually talk to the farmer who gets excited about his soil.
Oh, yes. He loves farming. He has amazing stories and so much knowledge.
Yeah. They have markets. We go to the one at Sandgate. It's in near the big roundabout near Woolworths, and they also have a couple of other markets there. But recommended.
Highly recommended.
Highly recommended.
So some people think that in order to have a better life, you have to budget and you have to shrink and you have to downsize. Are there any other ways?
Well, of course there are.
What are they? Please help.
Look, the tendency is for people to think that they have to cut out of their life certain things in order to have other things. So say, for example, that you're trying to save some money to buy something, or you're finding that you're spending more money than you earn. So what the tendency is to do is say, well, look, I'll stop having those coffees. I'll only have 1 bottle of wine a week instead of 3. We'll have to cut out on our takeaways because they're very expensive. And I'll buy my shoes from Best and Less instead of from Myer.
So it's like shuffling money around.
Well, no,
from
it's
here to there.
cutting things out of your life.
Okay.
So what
That
if
you might really enjoy.
that you might really enjoy, that are part of what you like about life?
Mm.
So what about, instead of saying I have to cut back, what if you looked at the question of what will it take to have so much money, so much revenue, that I never have to think about the price of anything ever again?
I don't believe I can have that.
Interesting. So for example, recently I found myself driving around in my car looking for the best price for fuel, for petrol. And then when I went into the petrol station, I would look, do I have the 91 octane? Do I have the 95? Obviously, I can't afford the 98. That's way too expensive. Now, my car takes 95, but sometimes I was putting 91 in it, which means the car is going to run less efficiently. There's more wear and tear. It's not such a clean petrol. And I started asking myself, what if I was earning so much money that I never had to think about the price of petrol ever again? I could just pull up to a petrol station, flip the cap and start filling. And the price of it was never, ever a limitation. When you ask those sorts of questions, what you're asking for is greater life, greater revenue. You're not trying to reduce your life.
You don't have to come up with an answer, do you?
No.
Because if I answer that question, I go, oh, I have to get a second job. I don't have time for a second job.
Well, that could be the case, you see, but you have to look at the life you have. Are you creating a life you can't afford? If you can't afford it, can you create more revenue?
So change the question again.
So change the question, change the target here. If you have to take a second job to live the life you'd like to live, then that's one thing you have to do. That's what will it take to have the life I'd like to have. But there could be other ways.
But when I think about money, it's different. It feels more stuck.
Well, money is probably one of the most complicated and fixed point of view topics on the planet. So really, you've got to hold your own counsel. Because if you go and talk to other people about it that have a limited point of view about money or some fixed point of view about it, you're only going to get more of what you already have. So by you asking yourself a question about this and being in question and continuously asking questions rather than coming to conclusions, then you open up the door to more possibilities.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the thing here. I mean, there is no limit to the amount of money on the planet. I mean, the government spends billions of dollars on all sorts of weird stuff.
Yeah.
You know, when a depression or a recession hits, the same amount of money still exists in the world.
Yes. And I do know that during any depression, there are always people who are making money.
Absolutely. You know, you might need to make some quite significant changes to your life. If you'd like to have the life that you'd like to have, then something's got to change from the choices that you're making now to have the life that you have.
Yeah.
If you stick with what you have, you'll always have that. You've got to make some changes.
It's like,
to have more.
I remember the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different outcome.
Absolutely.
It seems like on this planet, in this reality, living with people, it's like one person does one thing wrong and everybody gets punished.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. So something occurred at school this week, of course,
Yes, Miss Teacher.
that somebody did something wrong, a misdemeanor of some sort.
Was that a teacher, staff member?
A staff member,
Okay.
we think. At our faculty meetings this week, the head of departments were instructed that everybody at school has to review the code of conduct training, and they had to deliver various scenarios that staff went through in order to look at people's behaviour, how we should behave. That seems fair enough.
It does.
However, this is week 9. Reporting is due next week, Wednesday, and we have only just finished the mandatory code of conduct training earlier on in the year. It was due in April. It is now June. Why do we have to do it again? And if one person did something wrong, why can that not be addressed with that one person? And once again, here we are, where everybody has to sit through training that's not really relevant to the majority of people at a really, really busy time of year when most teachers have to mark 200 pieces of assessment and write 130 reports by Wednesday.
How many people are at your school would have to...
About 100 staff, approximately.
So at this busy time of the year, when all of you teacher people are trying to get all of your assessment and whatever it is you've got to get done, because of one person did something, and it's not clear what that is.
No.
You guys have to go through a second code of conduct training.
Yes, like a refresher. But we know all these things, so just address the elephant in the room. I believe, look, if I did something wrong, I wish someone would come to me and speak to me openly and say, look, we've observed this, and then I could change.
Right.
But not give me this whole retraining and I don't even know what I've done. If I don't know what I did or supposedly had done, then wouldn't it be better to address it with the person and ask them directly and have a conversation with them?
Of course, but it's a lot easier just to say, let's just do the training again with everyone. Think of the energy that's required from the person directing that this should be done. He or she just has to say, everybody do the training again. And then they're done, right?
Right. But
and then the responsibility is handed down to the department heads.
Right.
To actually give that training.
So it's up to them.
So it's kind of like, whose lap can I dump this in?
Yeah. Did you know that some businesses are still operating like it's 1995? And just like the person or the admin we just talked about don't read the room, maybe businesses aren't reading the room of the demographic shifts and behaviour of consumers. What do you think?
Amazing. There's a trend that we've probably all heard of, which is that the population is ageing. But the effects of that, I think, are much, much wider, much broader than anybody has really looked into and realised. And so this model of business that we have, let's call it capitalism, that began after World War II. There was a whole shift in the way the world worked after World War II. And so if the way business looks after staff, hires and fires, recruits and lets go of people, and if that business has not taken into consideration that there are a greater number of elderly people and a much lesser number of young people, then they're going to have less and less people to recruit into their business, because the facts are there's less and less young people. And there's been this thing for many, many years now about recruiting young people into the business, fresh ideas, new blood, strength, vitality, and all of that stuff, and letting go of the old people at a certain point, let's say 60 years old, 65 years old, because they're old.
Yeah.
But the reality is, a lot of people would still like to work.
Yes.
A lot of elderly people have years and years of experience, talents, capacities.
And in a lot of cultures, the elderly are revered and they're called elders and they have a lot to contribute.
Not so much around here.
And they're wise.
And they're wise. So business has to start looking at, if I'm having less coming in from this direction, maybe I can engage with those people that I thought were useless after 65 or not worth employing, because there is a serious bias against hiring old people.
Oh, I know.
And look, we're not talking about old. 60, 65 is not old.
Yes.
People have got another 20, 30, 40 years. Some people live to 100.
And I know some people at 80 are still working.
Absolutely. I know people
and
that
still
too.
driving cars and still being very active members in the community, not sitting in nappies in a aged care home.
Yeah. So those early business structures were designed and built for a time that no longer exists.
Yeah.
And now is the time, well, probably some years ago was the time to start having a look at those structures and breaking them down and building new ones.
I think we really need to rethink how society's been set up.
Yeah, It's different now. And a lot of things are still working on the old frameworks, the old structures.
Which no longer exist.
And
they're all breaking apart.
Yes. Well, is that it for today?
That's it for today.
Fantastic. Same place next week?
Perhaps not.
Same time?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. We'll see you. You've been listening to Mouthbuzz. Subscribe to stay in the loop and be part of the conversation next time.